Mrs. Isabella Beeton's Book of Household Management, published in 1861, is considered a classic guide to domestic life during the Victorian era. It provided a glimpse into the daily routines and etiquette of the time, offering advice on cooking, cleaning, childcare, and more. While the book is celebrated for its insights in Victorian society, it also contains recommendations that, when viewed through a modern lens, can be seen as dangerous or harmful. We'll explore some of these questionable recommendations and shed light on the darker aspects of this renowned Victorian guide. Isabella Mary Mason was born on March 14, 1836, and became widely known as Mrs. Beeton. She became a renowned author at 21 years old for the publication of her domestic guide, Mrs. Beeton's Book of Household Management. She is considered one of the most famous domestic writers of the Victorian era. Isabella grew up in a middle-class family and received an education that included French, music, and drawing, which were typical accomplishments for young Victorian women of her social class. In 1856, she married Samuel Orchard Beeton, a publisher and magazine editor, which led her to becoming involved in writing and editing for his publications. Isabella Beeton's most significant achievement was Mrs. Beeton's Book of Household Management. This extensive work was a comprehensive guide to running a Victorian household efficiently, such as cooking, cleaning, child-rearing, medical advice, and household etiquette. It claimed to provide practical guidance to the growing middle-class population of the time and was a reflection of the values and expectations of Victorian society. Her book became immensely popular and was reprinted numerous times. It contained a wealth of recipes, household tips, and advice on managing household staff, which made it an indispensable resource for Victorian homemakers. The book's success made Isabella Beeton a household name. However, with the success of the book came several controversies regarding the originality of the contents within the book. At least 2 authors came forward with accusations that Isabella had plagiarized their materials. Many of the cooking recipes in the book had been copied from a variety of the most popular cooking books of the day. Many of them had been stolen from a friend, Henrietta Mary Portois. Isabella had sold 60,000 copies in its first year of publication and went on to sell nearly 2 million more by 1868. The bulk of the book was hundreds of recipes, however the book covered a wide range of topics. Her recipes for invalid cookery included recommendations for heavily spiced foods and alcohol-based remedies for the sick, which could worsen their conditions. Moreover, her recipes often called for ingredients like arsenic-laden green food coloring, which potentially could be deadly if consumed in excess. One of her recipes recommended cooking pasta for about an hour and 45 minutes, which drew concerns that the recipes hadn't been tested before publishing, but Isabella swore that she tested every single recipe before it went into the book. One of the most alarming aspects of Mrs. Beeton's book was her medical advice. In the book, Mrs. Beeton stated that it was inevitable for a woman to have to play the role of sick nurse and recommended her readers to prepare themselves. It included recommendations that would be considered extremely risky for today. For instance, she advised the use of mercury-containing medicines for ailments such as calomel, derived from mercury, which was used as a laxative, but it's now known to be highly toxic. Additionally, she suggested the use of opium-based products, even for children, for a range of medical conditions, which could lead to addiction or severe health consequences. She even gave advice on what to do if someone in the household found themselves poisoned, saying, quote, "When an alkali is the poison, give drinks of weak vinegar or lemonade. When an acid, chalk and water, whitening plaster from the walls, or white of egg. If a narcotic, give strong coffee, and do everything to keep the patient awake, walking him about, opening the windows wide, applying cold water to his face, and so on." Though in some circumstances it is difficult to criticize Isabella, as at the time of publishing, this was all available and regarded as safe at the time. Subsequent republishings, however, didn't offer corrections when it was known to be dangerous. The Victorian era was also notorious for tight lacing of corsets, and Mrs. Beeton's book not only endorsed this practice, but also recommended starting young girls corseting as young as 8 years old. This constrictive garment was known to cause health issues like breathing difficulties, rib deformities, and even organ displacement. The book's promotion of such fashion trends reflects a dangerous and painful aspect of Victorian women's lives. And while corset wearing can and was done safely, tight lacing is what has given corsets a bad reputation altogether. The book also offered advice on child rearing and discipline methods that are now widely condemned. Mrs. Beeton suggested the use of corporal punishment and harsh discipline in order to maintain order in the household. She also advocated for the early introduction of solid foods to infants, which could have led to digestive problems and nutritional deficiencies. Of course, we already covered the death bottles, and they too had been significantly popularized thanks to Mrs. Beeton. At the time of the book's publication, she didn't have extensive experience with motherhood, as her book might express. When she was writing the book, she had only just had her first child, and by the time it was finished, her firstborn wasn't even 2 years old yet. Hygiene standards have also evolved significantly since the Victorian era, and some of Miss Beeton's recommendations regarding personal cleanliness are questionable by today's standards. She suggested infrequent bathing and the use of various substances in cosmetics and toiletries, including lead-based powder and mercury-containing skin creams. However, tragically, Isabella Beeton's life was cut short when she died of a bacteria infection that can occur after childbirth, at the young age of 28 on February 6, 1865. There is some speculation that Samuel had contracted syphilis before he'd married Isabella, and that he had passed it on to her and their 2 surviving sons. The couple had also been plagued with miscarriages and stillbirths throughout their marriage, and 2 of their children had died in infancy. A year after her death, her husband had been facing bankruptcy and sold the rights to the book for about £3,000, which equated to about £500,000 today, or 600,000 USD. Despite her untimely death, her book continued to be published and updated in subsequent editions, becoming a lasting legacy of her contribution to domestic literature. While Mrs. Beeton's book of household management offers valuable insights into the Victorian era, it also contains numerous recommendations that, by today's standards, are dangerous or harmful. From questionable medical advice to harmful fashion practices and controversial child-rearing methods. The book reflects darker aspects of the Victorian era. It serves as a reminder of how society norms and values have evolved over time, and how our understanding of safety and well-being has improved. Today, we can appreciate the book's historical significance while still acknowledging the need for a more enlightened and responsible guidance in our modern world. Want more dark tales? Dive into our previous episodes and get lost in what we've unearthed. If today's episode sparked your curiosity, let me know. Leave a comment down below, share your thoughts, and give this video a thumbs up. Sharing our content helps others embark on this historical journey too. But until next time, continue to seek the stories that have been whispered. This is Grim Histories, signing off.